Good evening, social change warriors. Welcome to our Wednesday. I almost said Wendy. My sister's name is Wendy, so that's probably why. Welcome to our Wednesday series, the Angry Bitch Club, where we get to talk about things that are really bothering us and really make us mad as women. So welcome, and to anybody that's on the replay later tonight. I know there's a couple other interesting shows on tonight and a couple other content creators who are live as we speak. So I'm sure I won't have a big audience tonight, but I will love to have you in the replay tomorrow. So thanks for joining us. All right. Oh, probably a couple months ago now, if you guys recall, not to go political because this is bipartisan on Wednesdays and Thursday nights, but sometimes it'll come up, right? We shouldn't be ashamed of who we vote for or why we vote or if we're left, right, or middle. I was pretty irritated by the video that came up with J.D. Vance, our current gentleman running for vice president with 45. And I wasn't happy about that. I don't know how about the rest of you feel, but I thought it was just really pretty nasty. Granted, it was from a couple of years ago, but he said it, right? So it was in an interview, and it's not, you can't undo that. What you say nowadays is out there, whether it be on a live stream like this, or you're interviewed by the media, or you're at a live function, a rally. What you say is there, and it's there forever now because everybody records everything. So I just thought it was really quite nasty for a man of his stature and what he does, in life. And now he's been asked to run as the vice president of the country. So to make rude comments about what single women are like to him or what he believes they're like, and then to go as far as to say, if they don't have any children, if they've never had children, they're not really contributing to society. I mean, that has got to be one of the most ridiculous, archaic things I've ever heard come out of the mouth of anybody who's in the media, much less someone who wants to run as vice president of our country. So, if you're okay with that as a woman, I would love to know why. I would really love you to contact me. I'll type my socials here in the chat box later, but I'd like to know why, because I just can't imagine any woman in the year 2024 that would be okay with that. And then he took it a step further, and he had to disparage and discredit women who own cats. I don't get it. I'm still really not getting it. I've had weeks to think about it. And when I started to come up with the idea for live streams on Wednesdays with the Angry Bitch Club, and then Thursday nights, we're going to be calling out corruption, looking at our local police departments in our communities and checking in on them and making sure they're not corrupt, like we know some of them are. And there's been many cases in recent history of police corruption. And we have a couple in the media right now that, we mentioned last week and on Thursday and the Thursday before, and we've mentioned them in our Wednesday sessions. Some of our topics cross over because what's an injustice to a woman could also involve police corruption and government corruption. So we may talk about that particular person who's facing injustice or who died due to injustice, and they may cross over on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Tonight, our first topic of the first 30 minutes or so is about this comment that J.D. Vance made about cat ladies, and in particular, crazy cat ladies, which that one really makes me mad. It's one thing to be a cat lady, but then now you're a crazy cat lady, and you're not productive. You're sitting in your house all day petting your cats, and you don't socialize, and you don't have boyfriends or girlfriends or friends. And the stereotype of that is really appalling, and it's completely not true. So cat ladies, yes, we are. I was fortunate enough to have a cat way back when I was 19 and rehomed the sweet little girl because I had to move into another campus housing. So then I had cats when my sons were little. We had a couple cats, and then one of our cats lived to be 12 and the other one lived to be 18 and a half. And the next two made it to 16 and 15. So I've been a cat lady for many, many years, and I'm proud of it. I think they're wonderful creatures. They're calming. They help with stress and anxiety. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But that's what brought this subject up to me is that statement just stuck in my head. I thought it was just so nasty. And of course, social media when a flame on it, right, went on fire. So um, call out, a lady and her pet, and you're going to have trouble. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Is why is this happening? Why has there been this stigmatism? This why have women been put down for having cats and even dogs at times? I'm sure some of you that have been dating in the last 10 years or maybe longer. In my case, I've been divorced for a long time. Have run up against men that you've tried to go on dates with who do not want you to have pets, or they're critical of your pets, or they ask you, when this pet goes, if we're still together, you're done with pets, right? I've actually had men ask me that. So it's really quite something to me that there are great guys out there who love pets. There are men who have cats, there are men who have dogs, and they're wonderful pet owners, and they don't mind if the person they're dating or the person they want to marry has a pet. But there's a set group of very misogynistic men, and that seems to correlate, interestingly enough, who are constantly disparaging or putting down or refuse to date a woman or who has pets. So I've always been kind of confused by that. So I wanted to dig into it and share that with you. So just a reminder that we keep everything very happy in the chat box. I love all of your suggestions, comments, questions, but I definitely don't want anyone, obviously calling anyone names. If anyone trolls in the chat box and starts dissing out, bad information, then you'll be asked to leave the chat box. So please be kind and think of others' feelings, and especially when we're talking about topics that have to do with other people, putting other people down or not being kind to them in the first place. So I appreciate that. And follow me on Twitter. I'll block my camera here at the end, and I'll type my Twitter account in the chat box. And I'm just starting Instagram, so that's something new. Reason for the swag tonight is I'm still in Wisconsin at my mom and sister's condo, and I attended the Badger football game last week, and so I thought I'll bring out my alumni cheerleading shirt and my Wisconsin Badgers, love the Badgers hat, and I'll do a little Badger promo here tonight for a little bit. Maybe next week I'll throw on my USC hat from where I went to where I got my master's degree. So, and of course we have to put the Packers hat on at some point, and during basketball season we'll have to rep the Bucks, and I have a Brewers shirt too. So maybe if the Brewers get deep into the playoffs, I'll be wearing that one. So always try to rep my teams on the nights that I'm live, and even if I'm in pre-recording. So feel free to rep your teams in the chat box and let me know where you're from and who you're cheering for. Sports, being a sports fan is a big part of my life. So thanks again for joining me tonight. So let's talk about what I would like to chat about with you guys tonight. So the stereotype of the crazy cat lady, it just completely, I put this up here for you so you could kind of follow along with me. And I will actually post these slides on my website. I'm still working on the transition of my website. As you guys know, I was doing more pre-recordeds the last 5 years. So my website was more directed towards kind of a teaching mod. I had been teaching for a while at the collegiate level. So redoing my website so it's a little more blogger user friendly. And after these live shows, I can post up any questions and answers and these decks so that you can go back and take a look if you want to share this information out with your friends. So this idea about, women have a lot of cats because they're single and they don't have any kids, and maybe they don't feel attractive or they're not in the mood to date. So the stereotype is that they have all these furry friends and that they have 3, 4, and 5 cats, and they become this, quote unquote cat lady. And then this refers to, ladies who have many cats. I have had many cats, and I've had them for various reasons. And I have always found it to be sad, actually kind of sad, because I feel like I have to stick up for myself. I feel like I have to clarify why I had 4 cats. Why did I feel that way, right? This was like 10 years ago. And it's because people would say things to me. They would make fun of me, or I'd be on the dating apps trying to date, and someone would say, how many pets do you have? And I'd say, I have 2 dogs and 2 cats, or 2 dogs and 3 cats. And at one point I rescued a cat that was literally dying on my doorstep that my neighbor just let go when her brother passed away because she didn't want the cat. So I rescued him and saved him. And and I fell in love with him. So I wasn't going to give him up. I didn't care if I had 4 cats. If my landlord didn't care, why should you care, right? Why does anybody care, right? How many, as long as I'm within my confines of my lease and I'm paying a security deposit. But I kept getting negative comments like, oh, cat, you've become a crazy cat lady. You are like becoming your nickname. I can't even tell you how many negative things I've heard through the years. And I was feeling like I had to justify why I had 4 cats. And that I'm mad about that. And I would never do that again now that I'm 61, but we live and we learn, right? So hang on just a second. I'm going to check. It looks like I have a text coming in from somebody. Okay. Just want to make sure it wasn't anybody who's having trouble getting on. I had a little trouble with the first live stream tonight. I had to make a new one. So anyway, that's just really the stereotype of the cat lady, the crazy cat lady. And it's just really incredibly wrong. So believe it or not, people have studied this. And I know we study a lot of things, and a lot of people are, not into higher education. They don't really like it. They think it's too expensive, but there are a lot of good scientists out there and a lot of good people who love to do research, and especially in the field of social work, which is the field that I was in recently with my master's degree. There are a lot of researchers out there, and they're really good at it. And there are a lot of different ways you can do research studies. And I'm sure you've all heard of them. They do a lot of them, obviously, with medical, but they do them for, person and environment, and for sociology, and a lot of other, reasons that we do research. And believe it or not, this whole phenomenon of labeling single women who don't have children, or in my case, whose children have grown up, crazy cat ladies. So they did a study with 500 pet owners, and that I will put the link to the study on my website as soon as I get it live, which will be in the next week. I'll have my website live, and then you'll be able to go, if you are interested, and see where I found all this information. I'll have I'll have all the research in there, and the credit, the credit to whoever wrote it or where I found it. So what this study found, the Mental Health Foundation said that pets are highly effective at relieving stress and anxiety. And that's been proven. There's been more than just this one study that I read. I've read several. I'm going to put them all up here on this deck, but I will put them on my webpage. So there have been more than just one. And it's been proven that pets are effective in relieving stress, relieving anxiety. I can tell you for a fact that I've had an anxiety problem since I was a police officer. Nothing super severe, but I do have days that are worse than others. And my dogs, depending on when in my life I was, or cats, were helpful to me. And they were all helpful to me. My kitties recently all passed away, one right after the other in the last year and a half. And my last dog lived to be 18 and a half. And then I adopted my son's dog, my grandpuppy, and she just passed in July. So I can guarantee you without a doubt that pets help with stress and anxiety. They have helped me. And I'm noticing now that I don't have my own. I just have my sister's when I'm here that I get to pet. And my oldest son has a Doberman who I get to pet when I'm there, and he's wonderful, but they're not mine. So I'm without a pet for the first time since I was 21, and it feels off. I feel like my wrist has been cut off or something. So if you've never had a pet and you're thinking of getting one because you do live alone now, your kids are growing, maybe I'm sorry if you're, a widower or a widow, or maybe you're divorced and just not finding anyone, consider it. It really is. It just enriches your life. I just can't tell you how much it does. If you're in a position to afford it and where you live, please consider it, because it's just really, it's wonderful. So cat owners, they said, even though dogs also enrich your life, but they said cat owners have a significantly lower risk of stroke and heart attack with these 500 participants. And there were a couple other studies I read that reported the same exact thing. So that's amazing. So it's not just about anxiety. It's actually can help you with your health. If you have another creature, another, person on this planet in the form of a cat to take care of and care for. So pop culture has really worked overtime to keep these stereotypes alive, and you will see it. And I'm going to read off this list here. Let me pull it up. And I think you'll recognize some of this interesting information that I found. So first of all, let's go over some of the stereotypes for single women, because it's not just about cat ladies, right? Single women have the stereotypes of being an old maid. You've seen that in all the movies for many years. Spinster. There are plenty of words with derogatory overtones that people have used forever. I mean, if you ever watched any of the old movies or the old shows, like remember Little House on the Prairie, and they used to call them the spinster school teacher. I mean, you could go show after show after show. And even just from the 70s and 80s, there was still a lot of very negative connotations for a woman who chooses to stay single or not have children. So basically today, what is still being held in the whole world of social media and just in culture is that if you're single and don't have any children, this represents that you're sad and you're lonely and that you don't have a very good life or a happy life. And then they use cats or some dogs as a substitute for lovers and children. Now, that has been proven completely false in all these studies, but yet you will see this all the time. So if you're on social media, or just if you're in general conversation, or if you're trying to date, which we're going to talk about next week on the Angry Bitch Club, is how this all rolls over into what it's like to date as a single person who either doesn't have children or whose children are growing, or whose husband has passed away, or you're divorced or have been divorced, or maybe you're divorced for the second time. So we're going to roll right with all of this right into next week. And boy, do I have some stories for you. I know my dear friend Kathy's in this chat box, and she knows most of them. She's known me since I was 21, so she's lived a lot of them. My dear cousin's in the chat box, and that's a story for the end of the hour, because I do want to share with you a little bit about something really exciting that happened to me in the last few months with 23andMe, with my DNA. So my cousin's in the chat box, and her husband has, I think it's my cousin Carolyn, and her husband has passed. So, but my other cousin's going to be watching on playback, I believe, or she may be here now. She's still married, and she's happily married, so I'm happy for her. But she can still come, and she can find a bitch, because there'll always be something. There'll be some person in your neighborhood or at your work or in the media or something going on in your community. So this is not a club just for single women. This is a club for anybody who has a bitch and wants to talk about it and come on the platform with me and air it out. And men are welcome as well, as long as they're kind and respectful. And if they're going to come in here and try to troll us and make fun of us, then out the door they go, because I do have a button that kicks them right out of the YouTube channel. So back to this. Here's what I wanted to read you a little bit, that it's not hard to find cat ladies in popular culture. So back in 1971, Clockwork Orange, which was a very eccentric, she was a very eccentric cat-loving single woman, actually gets killed, and she's beaten to death. So it's like a murder mystery, but they use her as this Catwoman, lonely Catwoman. In 2004, Saturday Night Live skit, and you may have seen it back then, Robert De Niro played a cat lady who could barely hold it together, and he could barely hold it together. I guess this is what this says now. I don't remember that one, so I'm going to have to go back and watch that, and we may have to watch a clip of that next week together, because it's probably very funny. But again, there's your stereotype, right? And then in The Office, Angela is obsessed with cats, watching her pets via nanny cams at work, keeping them in filing cabinets, and bemoaning the lack of cat maternity leave. So it's funny, right? I mean, we can always laugh. There's parodies are out there, Auntie Deb. I'll do a shout out for Auntie Deb. He has his YouTube channel where he's parodying all of the witnesses that were on the stand in the case, or most of them, and he's getting there. And some people may say, oh, he shouldn't do that. This is serious. John O'Keefe was murdered, and Karen Reed's being accused of his death. And yes, it is serious, but sometimes when things are so serious and so depressing, and especially those of us that follow true crime or follow trying to call out corruption, trying to right wrongs, it gets very overwhelming. So to have a parody where you can just laugh for a little bit, or watch a Saturday Night Live skit, and maybe they're making fun of someone with red hair and freckles, or maybe they're making fun of something that you're not exactly great at or perfect at, or one of your little, missteps, then laugh at yourself, right? Laugh. It's all good. Comedy is mostly good, and parody as well. So I will take a look at some of these that I have never seen. And then there's also The Simpsons, I guess, had a deranged cat lady in their cast of characters for years. So I'm sure I could find a whole nother list for you next week when we kind of retrace our steps on this and merge into talking about what it's like to date in the 2024. So let's move on here. And let's see here. So we know about keeping this stereotype alive in culture and in current pop culture. So that's kind of what we just went over. So the science has proven that cats do not make you crazy. Okay. It's the total opposite. Cats help you with your stress. They make your life, cats and dogs, because I'll include dogs in this as well, but dogs just don't get a bad rap. Right. And isn't that interesting? So only cats get a bad rap, not dogs. And so that could be a topic that we'd have to delve into on another night, because there's reasons for that. And George Carlin, with his famous cats and dogs comic routine, maybe we'll try to take a peek at that next week without breaking any YouTube laws. Or take a peek at it yourself again. It was his famous cats and dogs from like the 80s, where he compares cats and dogs, and it's hysterical, but it's typical. It's like the cat gets blamed for everything. The cat is nasty. The cat hisses. The cat bites, and the dogs are funny and romp around your house, and their tail's always wagging, and on and on and on. So for whatever reason, it's the cats that get the bad rap. But science has proven in many, many studies that is not true, and that cats do not have any kind of negative effect on your life whatsoever. And this is a picture of my dear grandmother. Her name was Ethel. This is my baby cat. She lived to be 18 and a half. And Grams was a cat lady for a while. And never in a million years did Grams think she would be a cat lady. She absolutely didn't really want to care for pets. She thought it was too much for her. She had a little disability from when she had a brain tumor when she was young. So she just never thought she could care for the pet properly. She liked pets. She liked my pets, always wanted to pet my dogs and feed them under the table and all the things that grandmas like to do. And but there was a point in my life where I had to travel for a little bit, and Grams offered to take care of the baby cat. So she became a cat lady. So I think when I heard J.D. Vance make that comment and say the things he said, it struck me even deeper, because my grandma was a loving, kind, wonderful person. And she took wonderful care of the baby cat. She was the furthest from crazy. She was happy. She loved her life. She was married to my grandpa for 67 years. She was a wonderful mother to my mother, a wonderful great grandmother to my kids. So you see what happens when we stereotype? And we don't know the person's backstory either whatsoever. So why do they have cats? How did they get there? How did they become a cat lady per se, right? So I wanted to show you this picture of my grandma, and no one would have ever thought that she would become a cat lady, but she did. And she was a wonderful care provider until I brought baby cat back home with me. So that has been debunked. This is a stereotype. It's still being out there in pop culture, but it is not a correct stereotype. And we should do everything we can to stand up for ladies that own cats. So how does this bridge into this misogynistic platform that we deal with in other aspects of our life as women, right? And that's what's very bizarre. But interestingly enough, women who have cats and men who are misogynistic, they really draw out their attention on that. They're extra negative towards women who have cats. They're extra mean. They may, if you are dating them, they may not treat you right. They may force you to get rid of your cat. I read seriously hundreds and hundreds of comments on Reddit and on a couple other platforms, and it was mind-boggling, like hundreds and hundreds of comments in the last 2 months preparing for this, of women who were told to get rid of their cat, give them away, rehome them, I'll divorce you, everything you can imagine. It's mind-boggling. So we know, based on research and science, because they have done studies on this, that men who fall into that misogynistic category, which whether J.D. Vance likes it or not, he put himself there, right? We didn't put him there. He put himself there. And a lot of men put themselves there with their big mouths, right? They say nasty things to us. They talk behind our backs, talk about us, put it on social media. And on them. That's not on us. We're not putting them in that box of being a misogynistic man. They're doing it with their actions. So interestingly enough, it goes all the way back to Aristotle, and he famously believed that women were inferior and deformed versions of men. And this term was coined way back in the 17th century. It's derived from the Greeks, and it literally means hatred of women. And, I'm not saying that there's a lot of men who have a true, pure hatred of women, but there are some, and it's a spectrum. It's similar to autism, right? There's the spectrum. There's way out here where there's men who despise women and they're really, really nasty to them, and they're the abusers, and they end up to be domestic violence murderers if things get out of hand. And then you've got way down here where you've just got men that are a little bit with their big egos, and they think they're better than we are, and they may be a little nasty here and there. They may not want us to get a promotion. They may talk about you behind your back at work. They may talk about you behind your back to their friends, even if you're their girlfriend or their wife. So you've got this big spectrum, right, of a man that is misogynistic. And then, of course, you have lots of men that are lovely and kind, and you're probably married to them, right? And you're still married to them because they're good people, and they're not misogynistic, and they don't hate cats, and they don't hate dogs, and they would never ask you to get rid of a pet. Of course there are, but we're not, sadly, we're not focusing in on the Angry Bitch Club on the good guys. We're focusing in on the guys that aren't very nice, that don't treat us right, and we're sick of it, and we're going to stand up to them, and we're not going to put up with them anymore. And I worked with some of them through my life, and I'm sure you have. And I've also worked with very good, kind men. And sure, maybe at some point we'll have a show and we'll bring on some guests, and the good, kind men can help us explain why they feel some of their friends are like this. And I've thought about that. I'd like to bring some men on the platform who work with men or who know men that are misogynistic and nasty towards women, and help us understand how they got that way. Maybe they'll know better than we do, because they're a man and they may understand it. So I remember once a sergeant of mine told me, you've got your kids, you've got a career, you have a great life, don't date anymore. And I think he really believed that. He said he knows men well, and he truly believed that there's not that many out there. Most of them are taken, as he put it, because they were found when they were younger, and the women who have them are not letting them go because they are good and they are kind. And that was his take. And this was one of my sergeants when I was a police officer. So this term misogyny refers to acts of contempt towards women, which we have seen many times in the media. We've heard about it. We've witnessed it at our jobs. We've witnessed it in our neighborhoods, and some of us have been victims of it. And especially in domestic violence cases, you are almost always going to find that any man who can beat up his wife, hurt her, sexually abuse her while they're married, and threaten her, take away her money, all the things that happen to domestic violence victims before they leave or before they're killed, that person has all the signs of being a misogynistic person. So in the 1970s, with the second wave of feminism that came through, and if you've done your homework in high school or college, then you might not know, but there were 4 waves of the feminist movement from the beginning until it sort of phased out, because suddenly women were living it, and we became, we started doing men's jobs. We started sticking up for ourselves. Laws changed. We actually could get a credit card, if you can believe that. In the 70s, my mom couldn't have her own credit card. You could not have a credit card in your name, only in your husband's name. So women that were single in the 70s who chose not to get married for whatever reason, or hadn't met their person, could not have their own credit card. So imagine that. Just wrap your head around that for a minute. So of course, I love this saying, and that's why I put this up here, to take my glasses off so I can actually read it to you. Whenever one person stands up and says, wait a minute, this is wrong, it helps other people do the same. And that is just the truth, right? Because a lot of times people are just afraid to speak out. They just don't feel that their voice matters or that they'll ever be heard. So they just suffer in silence, or they might share it with a couple of girlfriends, or, so when the whole feminist movement got rolling and started, there was a lot of backlash, right? A lot of these women were just ostracized. And women who were, told by their families and made to believe that they had to follow their husband and that he made the rules and he ran the house and he had the money. They were appalled at this, and those women took a lot of heat, and it was really hard for them and very brave of them to continue to stand up for women's rights and for women empowerment. So misogyny was usually distinguished from sexism back then, right? So there was sexism, there was misogyny, which was considered a little bit different. It was considered the violent side, right? Where sexism was just nasty. So now they're kind of weaved together. So it's kind of considered, like I said, there's more of a spectrum now. It's all misogyny. There's the sexual violent kind, there's the domestic violence kind, and then there's just the nasty sexism kind, where men still don't want women in their jobs. They don't want women bosses. They don't want women telling them what to do, on and on and on. So in the early 21st century, then these words kind of became interchangeable. So there was no longer like sexism and misogyny. That was just, now it's just all one, with this like spectrum of the level of how it's being portrayed towards women, or how women are being affected by it. And there's different levels of intensity. So that's why I kind of use the long, yardstick, the spectrum of it as an example. So in 2002, it took 2002 for the Oxford English Dictionary to finally change its definition. So from hatred of women to hatred or dislike or prejudice against women. So it's actually a prejudice against women when you have that level of misogyny going on. And then Webster followed suit a few years later. So that's finally got the definition of that changed. So according to the feminist movement, and throughout the last 20, 30 years, that this has resulted because of gender roles, right? And needing to have them enforced by men, because that's how it always was. And why are we changing something that works? Women stay home with the kids, women cook, women clean, men go out and earn a living, men run the money, men run the show. Women don't vote back in the day, right? Women still don't vote in some churches, believe it or not. There are still churches in our country, certain synods of certain churches that don't allow women to be pastors or allow women to vote. So it bled into the church as well. So, we have these historically patriarchal societies, and look at how long that stayed in place. I mean, too long. And even now, even though we're in 2024, we're still dealing with it in certain ways. And that's why I want to continue this talk next Wednesday, and then we'll kind of bridge into the date and how misogyny and how it comes out in dating and what you have to look out for. There are definitely a lot of warning signs for you ladies to be aware of when you're trying to date, and married ladies, warning signs for you that, people change. The person you married may not be who you thought they were, and maybe you've just been trying to make the best of it, and now they're getting worse as they're getting older. So there's signs that I want to teach you to look out for, so you can remove yourself, because no one should be with someone who treats them badly, who puts them down, bosses them around, tells them they're fat, yells at them, calls them names, on and on and on, tells you who your friends can be. Nobody deserves that. And trust me, it is very hard to be alone. I can tell you this because, hi, Queen Ala, welcome. I can tell you how hard it is to be alone. It is difficult at times. And I have chosen that road for myself because after I was a police officer and raised my sons, I wasn't needing anybody that, ladies, you're worthy, okay? Regardless if you're tall, fat, skinny, blonde, redhead, whatever your color your hair is, what her nationality is, whatever the color of your skin is, you are a woman and you are strong and you are worthy. And as hard as it is to be alone is way better than being with someone who's misogynistic, who bosses you around and tells you what to do and doesn't make you feel like you are worthy. We don't deserve that as women, and none of us do. And there's some men can change. Some men can go to counseling and they can become better. That's up to you. If you're in a relationship like that, you have to make that decision. But when it bridges into verbal abuse and physical abuse, and constant name calling, and you have no control over your money or anything that you can do or say, then you really need to start looking at this seriously, because these men do exist out there. They're among us every day. We work with them. They're our neighbors. they are running for office. Okay. They are out there. So you just really have to be kind to yourself and make sure you're checking, checking your back and watching the backs of all your female friends. So like I said, men wanted us in support roles for a very long time, and they did everything they could do to keep us there. I mean, how is it possible that it took a few women in the 70s, and I'll talk about them next week a little bit, to start a women's movement? It took till 1970, and we're still not caught up. We still make less than men. We make 85 cents on the dollar. And if you're a brown skinned person, if you're an African American or a Latino, or if you're of a mixed race, you make even less. And if you're I'll go over it next week. I have a chart for you, and you will see how crazy this still is, that women are still making less than men in every role, in every job. Now, sure, you could say, well, wait a minute, what about firefighters or police or nurses or doctors, where that's just on a scale? And of course it is. But as you well know, most of the time when people have children, the woman is still the one who takes off of work when the kids are sick. The woman is still the one that does not sign up for overtime because she's a mom, and she's going to go to her kids' sporting events, and she's not going to be most women aren't going to be their workaholics, as they call them. They're going to raise their children. Now, maybe in single situations where you've got a single man, no kids, a single woman, no kids, both equally educated, I'll check into that, and I'll let you know next week. But I'm still pretty confident that men are getting the promotions over women, and men are making more than women, regardless of if they're equally educated, equally experienced. And I recall that from a couple of papers I wrote, but I will prove it to you, and I will get you the receipts, as you younger ones like to say. And we'll talk about that a little bit next week. So I watched a little bit of this YouTube show today, and I have to figure out fair use, and I don't want to break YouTube's rules. So next week, if I can I'll figure out fair use. We may watch the first few minutes of this, but I would encourage you to write this down and watch this before next Wednesday, because I want to break it down with you. This is a very interesting young man who has his own YouTube channel. He has 300,000 followers, so he's obviously doing something right. He's not in my age group, though. He's not even close to being a boomer. He is 26 years old. So I want to watch it. I'm going to keep an open mind, and I'm very interested in some of the ladies that are in their 30s and 40s who watch my shows, who are going to join me hopefully on the replay. I'm very interested to see what you think about this, because I have a feel. I'm going to look and see if I can find a little bit older man, closer to my age. I'm 61, who has a show and that talks about dating, because then I could compare them, because I don't really think I can compare myself to what a 26-year-old man is telling me about dating compared to what a man my age in his 50s or 60s is telling me about it. It's a very different world. But I did watch the first 20 minutes, and I agreed with a lot of what he said. And just in a nutshell, he's talking about how we are not communicating anymore. We're in our phones 24/7. Sorry, take a little drink. The allergies here in Wisconsin are getting to me. Yeah, he had a lot to say about social media and our phones, and how our communication is breaking down, and this is affecting dating. And a lot of the dating sites have people on there that just have one thing in mind, and they're not looking for a partner. And how do we separate those people and get them on their own sites, where if all they want to do is sleep around, then go have a dating site for that. Don't come on my dating site where I'm trying to find someone who's real and wants to have a relationship, right? So yeah, I like him, and I'm going to see if I can reach out to him as well. I'd love to have him come on as a guest. But go ahead and write this one down. I could try to, let me see if I can. No, I can't copy it in the chat box. I'm sorry, you guys. I'll type it in the chat box. You might be able to copy it and paste it right out of there. I'm still getting used to StreamYard. I'm still getting used to all the crazy, awesome things it can do. So we will talk about this next week as we bridge from misogyny and everything with the cat ladies and that terrible culture of stereotyping women who love cats. We're going to bridge into dating. And I found this today, and I thought, this is great. This is a great way to bridge into it. But I will try to find a man in my own age bracket, because I'm really interested to see what men have to say about why they think dating is broken, and especially this young man. So there's very few of you in my chat box tonight, and I understand why that is. There's a lot going on tonight, but do those of you that are in the chat box, if you have any questions, you can come on with your voice if you have a question. So just let me know in the chat box if you have a question, and I'm happy to bring you on the platform without your camera. You can block your camera, and let me know. So I'm going to take a brief break, and I'm going to type my Twitter in the chat box. Okay, ladies, and if any gentlemen watch the replay, I'm going to put in this is dating broken in the chat box. I'm not positive you can copy it out, but you might be able to. I think I used to copy things out of chat boxes back in the old days, but I don't know about StreamYard. That might not be possible, but I'll put it there anyway, because then if you go back and watch it on the replay, you could grab it if you don't have anything or don't feel like writing it down right now. So let me type that in there. YOUTU, looks like .B /. Never can know for sure, right? Is that a 0 or no? But I think it's an O. The 0 is a little bit different shaped, right? And P3, don't you just love these? On all the TV, the big TVs now, right? The fancy TVs, and we have to type in our passwords for movies and for like Netflix and for, I absolutely hate this with the remote. Oh, it drives me nuts. It's like if I never have to do that, if I never had to do that again, I wouldn't do it. But most of the time, you end up having to redo your password, or they make you type it in again. And I don't know, but guys, that's one of my bitches. I cannot stand it. I mean, it's modern technology and it's great, right? See, let's make sure I put this in right. So YOU, it looks like I put in an R instead of a T. There we go. Okay, so I'm just getting used to how to actually put up a video while we're chatting, and opposed to just this slide deck. So I'm gonna hopefully be able to get a little more techie with you as we go on through the weeks here. So there is the see if I can get that up there. There we go. So that's the again the channel for this gentleman who has this YouTube channel, and he's talking about his dating broken. So anybody want to come up? Anybody have a question who's in the chat box? Do you want to come on the platform? Or I think it doesn't look like it tonight. We have just a few of you. So maybe next week I can encourage some of you to come on up with me. So let me go back to, there we go. Sadly, we're adding a new domestic violence, in my opinion, murder to our Social Change Warriors Wednesday nights. We will continue to update you as we talk. I will show you who we talked about last week, and we will continue to update on their cases, whether they be still unsolved or if a person is arrested and what's happening with the trial. And we'll just keep adding to, sadly, to our deck of lovely ladies who are no longer with us on Wednesday night. So Suzanne Morphew's death was declared a homicide nearly 4 years after she was reported missing in Colorado. So in the early stages, they just did not know what happened to her. Her husband was on some type of a supposed, like a business meeting or a business trip or something. It was Mother's Day. She made her coffee like she always did. They found her coffee half full, or half empty, whatever you want to call it, on her kitchen counter. So they knew she had coffee, kind of a regular routine. She was a biker, so she went out for a bicycle ride in the mountains. They lived in the mountains of Colorado, and and then never came home. So nobody could get a hold of her. Her friends got concerned. It seemed, the whole thing just felt off to me. So, why is she alone on Mother's Day? She has two daughters. I know, granted, I think, but one was in high school at the time, and one was in college. But I know a little bit about this case because when it first happened 4 years ago, I'm like this, you guys. When I find out that women have been murdered, I get very upset by it, and I want to know more. As a former police officer, I want to solve it. I want to go out there and solve it and be on the team and help find out why this person's not with us anymore. So this case has been in the back of my mind for nearly 4 years, and wondering, in my mind, I honestly, truly believed that her husband did it. That's my opinion, because if you recall from last week, I was talking to you that 1 in 4 women will be a victim of domestic violence. It's just an absolute fact. They have studied this for years and years now. So 1 in 4 of your female friends either already has been or will be, or just won't ever tell you out of fear, right? So I read about the case and how she just literally vanished, and then they found her bicycle. Her husband came back and he was helping with the search, but it never felt genuine to me. It was like the Scott Peterson, Lacey Peterson case. I never in a million years, believed him. I knew he was lying. And I think we all have a way of telling when people are lying. We're all better at telling when someone's lying than we think we are. And sometimes we just want to give them the benefit of the doubt so bad. And we want to believe that person so bad that we're willing to, oh, good, Olive, I'm going to put up what you have to say. Olive says, that's my opinion too, Kat. I think her husband did. Yeah. So I knew Scott Peterson was guilty from the get-go. I was a police officer at the time when that happened. And so I used a lot of my training and skills to figure that one out. So I had no doubt about it. I still don't. And we may cover that on one of our Wednesdays, actually, because he's trying to claim that, he still says he didn't do it, even though the evidence is just overwhelming. And now he's, dragging her family all through this again. So I think we will cover that coming up. It's just, that one's tough for me. And it's tough. I had bad dreams for a long time when that happened. And then when this happened, when I found out about lovely Suzanne, a mother of 2 girls, I was just devastated as well, because I have a gut. My gut feeling down here. I have a heart. I know that this is not some random person who killed her. I just totally 100% believe that. And again, her husband has not been arrested this time. He was arrested the first time. They let him go because they didn't have a body or any amount of enough evidence. They felt that they could not. As you know, most prosecutors, not in the Karen Reed trial, as we know, most prosecutors will not prosecute a case if they can't win it. That's their job, is to make sure they can win it first and not put someone and their family through an unnecessary court case or court trial. So in this case, they released him. His daughters stood by him the entire time. This was 2 years ago, I believe, or 3 years ago. I'll have more on this for you next week. And she was finally found. I remember when I found out, I was like elated. I mean, not elated, obviously, elated in a good way that her body was found and maybe they could find out what happened to her. Just heartsick, but we knew she was dead at that point. There's no way she was missing for too long, right? To still be alive. So she was found many miles from her house, many miles from where her bike was apparently crashed, which was a frame job, right? Again, just like we're dealing with Sandra Birchmore and with Ellen Greenberg, these misogynistic domestic violence men think they're smarter than the rest of us. They think they're going to get away with it. And they literally frame these women. It looked as if he tried to make it look like she was encountered like a big cat or, some type of a cougar, because they live out in the mountains of Colorado. So the bike was like down this ravine, and whoever killed her tried to make it look like she either had an accident and then some cat dragged her off, because that's what they were talking about in the media for a long time. And I'm going, no way, no how, that did not happen. This woman biked out there all the time. Can it happen? Yes, in Colorado. I lived in Colorado for 2 years. Yes, there are mountain lions out there. Yes, there are, I believe, cougars. But the odds of it are still, guys, it's like I swim in the ocean almost every day. I've never been bit by a shark. Knock on whatever I can knock on. but it happens, right? It happens. It's like flying in an airplane or anything you do that has a 1 in a million odd. And I've had things happen to me when I had my children that in their births that were very rare. So I know about these odds, but in this case, there is no way I ever believed that she was in a bicycle accident and dragged off by a cat. A big cat, not our fluffy sweet cats that we were talking about earlier in this episode. So we will learn more about her. I'm going to share more about her case. They have not arrested her husband. I guess they just don't feel like they have enough. I don't know how they don't now, because more has come out that I will share with you next week. They found in her system, when they did the autopsy, as good as they could do after all these years of her being out there, she was buried in a shallow grave. So she was not drug off by a cat. She was moved. Her bicycle was staged, and she was in a shallow grave. And the only reason they found her is, sadly, they were looking for another missing person. So another missing person unit on another case. And they were looking in this area, and they found Suzanne. So I will share more about her next week. We'll always end our shows for the last 30 minutes with, we will bring up a new, sadly, victim that we have found. And we will talk about her, and then we'll share her more in depth the next time. And then we'll always revisit where the cases are of the ladies that we have introduced you to prior. So, this was interesting to me. No arrests, okay, have been made at all. It's basically a cold case, but there is a number up here. So if you know anyone that lives in Colorado or that lives in this area, and I know that one of our lovelies, Miss Ernie Birdie, lives out in Colorado. So I'll be interested if she watches this on replay. Oh yes, Miss Shorty, hello, welcome. If she watches it on replay, stopping by to say hi. Great. We appreciate you. Maybe she knows someone out there who knows something, but I'll keep sharing out this number because it's a cold case right now. And we'll share more about her life and what I believe happened to her. And in her system was a toxic chemical cocktail. And it's what you use to bring down a big game animal out there. So some of the hunters out there will use that if they want to take the horns off of their kill. And I hate even talking about this because I don't like it and I'm not for it. Okay. So I understand deer hunting in Wisconsin and in certain states because it's overpopulated and they're starving and people like to eat deer meat, but I'm not a fan of the big game hunting where they just shoot to kill for sport, these beautiful animals. It's another bitch that we could have on another Wednesday, and I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that because I am not for that. And that's my opinion, of course. But that is what was in the system of Suzanne, and that's what killed her. Her husband, former husband, obviously, because she's gone now, he had that chemical in their house, in their garage. He was a big game hunter. He had tranquilizer guns in the house. I'll go over the evidence with you next week. It will be shocking to you that they don't have an arrest again, now that they have found her body and it's been proven that she had this cocktail in her system. I'm still at a loss for words. So we will go more into her case a little bit next week at the end of our hour, because we're going to backtrack and talk about the misogynistic situation with men treating women in a certain way. And we'll kind of roll into dating and what it's like to date in 2024 next week. And I'd love to have some examples from all of you. And hopefully some of you will come on the platform and share some of your dating stories. I have a few for you as well in my age. So that's the lovely Suzanne. We're so sorry, Suzanne, that this happened to you, and we will continue to share you and get justice for you if we can help it. We'll do it. We are still going to be covering the Sandra Birchmore murder, which we now, all of us that were following this case for the past 2 years, absolutely believed that she was murdered by the person who is currently in custody, Matthew Farwell, who was a Stoughton police officer in Stoughton, Massachusetts. Never had a doubt in my mind that this lovely this lovely Sandra. And if those of you who have been following the Karen Reed case, you probably know about the Sandra Birchmore case, and all the content creators have been covering it now for 2 weeks because he was arrested finally, and they have a lot of evidence against him. So next week, I'll cover a little bit more about that on my channel, just in case some of you do not follow that and have not. But I do believe most of you that are following me right now have been on the other content creators channels and do know the gist of just the evil. I mean, I can't even call them scummy. Scummy guys are ones who stand you up on dates. Scummy guys cheat on you. These gentlemen, and they're not gentlemen, these guys are evil. Okay. They were police officers. They were entrusted with holding up the law and protecting their communities in Stoughton, Massachusetts. And there were 3 or 4 that we know for sure. There will be, I'm sure there's more that knew about this, and there will be more victims. I will tell you, as a former police officer and a social worker, there will be more victims. There is no way that these men were doing this pedophile ring, because that's what they were in, and Sandra Birchmore was their only victim. I don't believe it for a second. So I'm very nervous and scared for what we're going to find out in the next coming months. Heartsick for Sandra, her friends, and her family that she lost her life to this monster, and her child was also killed. She was 3 months pregnant. So we will talk a little bit more about her next week, what's going on right now. I'm not exactly sure I don't know if anyone knows when he has his next hearing, but we'll definitely cover it, and we'll keep an eye open for any more arrests, because there have to be more coming. There has to be. We have to keep fighting for justice for her and for the arrest, because pedophile is not curable. Okay, that there is science. There is science on that. There are research studies, and I can tell you more about that if you would like me to. I don't want to get real preachy or be like social work professory about this, but I can guarantee you that it is not curable. And so they cannot be out there. They cannot be free roaming around like 3 of them are. Only 1 has been arrested. They will do this again. Okay, 100% they will do this again to another young girl who's 12, 13, 14. And we just can't stand for that. We can't allow that. So we will keep fighting for justice for you, Sandra, and for your baby, and for your friends and your family. Ellen Greenberg, right now, the case is cold case. It still hasn't been reversed. It's still ruled a suicide. No way, no how. Sweet, lovely Ellen, school teacher, about to get married, her whole life ahead of her, stabbed herself 20 times. That did not happen. So we will continue to raise our voices on this channel on Wednesday nights for Ellen Greenberg. We will do what we can research-wise to give you more information. We do know the parents are fighting hard, and they've got this at the next level of the courts now to try to reopen her case, to try to overturn this ridiculous suicide proclamation. I mean, unbelievable, you guys. I mean, how in the world could how could any medical examiner worth their weight, worth their education, look at the evidence in this case and say that this young lady stabbed herself 20 times, including in the far back of the neck? Now, I have long arms, so yeah, could I? I mean, I don't know. This is my water bottle. It could be somewhat of a long. Could I do it? I could, because I have very long arms, and that's what they're trying to say, is that she could do it. Others are saying there's no way a woman can do that. Well, no, that's not true. So we always have to stick to the facts here, and it could be done, but not 20 times. Some of her wounds were fatal. So you're going to tell me she's got 3 fatal wounds? Well, which one killed her? And then how did she manage to then continue to stab herself when she was dead? There's evidence that her body was moved. There's evidence that the blood flow was not correct with the gravity of where she was found. There's a lot of evidence about this case that I'll go over. Every week we'll build a little bit more. You'll learn a little bit more about the ladies that we're representing. If you know someone, if you have a friend who knows someone, if you've heard of another case that I haven't heard of yet, and you want to bring her to our platform, we will. Okay, we will do that. So we will just keep adding information until these complete jerks, complete evil people are arrested, because these cases are linked. They are linked. They are woven together in an intersectionality of domestic violence. Ellen Greenberg was killed by her fiance. Sandra Birchmore that's domestic violence. They were in a relationship. He wasn't married to her, but they were in a long relationship from 13 to 23. That's domestic violence murder, right? So, and our new addition tonight, Suzanne Morphew, I believe 100% that she was murdered by her husband. They were going to be in a custody battle soon of sorts. They were going to be getting divorced. They've been having lots of problems. All documented by her family and friends. So these three women, Suzanne, Sandra, and Ellen Ray, were all victims of domestic violence murder, which, again, like I was telling you, is the numbers are growing. It's happening more and more. We talked about this last week, and we have to figure this out as a society and as a group of strong women in the Angry Bitch Club. We have to figure this out. And all three of these cases could roll over to tomorrow night because they all involve police corruption. They all involve government corruption. So there will be times when our Wednesday night bitch club rolls right on into calling out corruption because they are part of that. But we'll also focus on other cases that we've already brought into our limelight, which is Thomas Purdy, who we talked about last week. And we know that there is no way Thomas should have been murdered by the police in Reno, Nevada. So we will revisit him tomorrow and build a little bit more. Anne Marie Grant will be coming back at some point as a guest. And we also believe that we'll be having as a guest, hopefully, the sister of Justin Root. And this is also a Massachusetts neighboring town to Canton and Stoughton, where he was dealt with the police. So again, he was also killed during an episode of some type of mental health crisis. I apologize. I don't know as much about his case if you're watching any of his family, but I will find out and I will hopefully meet you because I know you're part of the grant, the foundation that Anne-Marie and the sister of Justin Root started together. So we will be revisiting their cases as well as we'll be following what's happening with Sonia Massey, who was shot by a police officer and all she wanted was help. She wanted to be taken to the hospital. So we're gonna be building on what's going on with those cases and more information for you as we go on with our Wednesday and Thursday series. So any questions? I just want to remind you all that there are 20,000 phone calls to the domestic violence hotline. And that on any given day, I used to volunteer for a domestic violence hotline. I have volunteered in domestic violence shelters. I have seen it firsthand. I have had friends that have gone through it. And as most of you who have been following me know, I did do a short 11-minute documentary on a domestic violence survivor. She was strangled and managed to get away from her attacker, who was her boyfriend, and he did go to prison. But sadly, and I'll tell you more about that on another night, he was released and almost murdered his next girlfriend. How she got away, it was a miracle, and then did go back to prison. So that the court systems are not always working in the favor of the female domestic violence victim. I put this little meme together about verbal abuse because that is also a big deal. It is not just getting punched in the eye or kicked in the gut or thrown down a flight of stairs. That's not just domestic violence. It is the everyday harassment that misogynistic men will put on their partners, whether it be their girlfriends, their wives, their fiancés. They will call you names. They will put you down. They will make you feel worthless. They'll tell you you're worthless. They'll tell you if you break up with them, you'll never find anybody, that you'll be a lonely cat lady with cats and miserable. And that's part of their whole line, part of their whole, stand-up comedy routine half the time. They say, oh, I'm only kidding, honey. It was a joke. I didn't mean it. And then it'll start over the next day and the next day. So verbal abuse is just as bad as getting hit. It's just, it doesn't hurt the same way. It doesn't leave scars or blood, but it hurts you inside and it ruins your mental health. So we always have to include the verbal abuse. If any of you are, in any trouble with any of these, please let me know. I will give you the resources in your town. I'll help you look up a way to get out of the situation you're in, and I'll share the numbers with you, share the hotlines, and you will hopefully remove yourself from that kind of situation with a very narcissistic, misogynistic. Those are words that men don't want to hear, and people don't like to hear them. if you ever bring those two words up in public or in conversations, you're going to get shot down, because most people know someone like that, or they are like that themselves, and they don't want to be reminded about it. But we have to talk about it. We have to save lives, because women are dying every day. Every 9 seconds, a woman is being beaten up by her husband or boyfriend or fiance. So if we just stayed quiet for 9 seconds, that's another woman. And that's also an absolute statistic that is factual and scary and horrifying. So we will continue to build on all of these women and build them up and represent them and speak for them, because they can't speak for themselves anymore, and fight for justice for them. I'll close out tonight. If you have any questions about the Karen Read trial, that's being covered so much that I don't feel like we have to cover it here. Everybody that knows about it knows about it. I'll probably do a short explanation of her case again, maybe next week, for those of you that don't know about it, because it is getting national news, and a lot of the content creators that are out there, you can find them on YouTube. They're doing a wonderful job of covering it. They have guests that are police officers, ex-FBI agents, on and on and on. So, but I did participate in the nationwide standout on Monday, September 2nd. And I know Miss Shorty, was in our chat box, she's going to be doing one in Australia, where she lives, and she's encouraging others that she is friends with in Australia to do the standout with her. So I hope that you will follow her on social media. She has her own channel. You can look her up on YouTube. She's Miss Shorty, and she does a lot of good work with mental health, and she also does work on domestic violence and homelessness. So you will find her shows very, very engaging and also entertaining at times. So I participated here in Madison, Wisconsin, where I live part-time here, and I'm going to be doing another one in Florida when I go back down there. I'm retired, so I get to go back and forth from my hometown of Madison to my other hometown in Daytona Beach, Florida. So this is the capital, which is the beautiful state of Wisconsin capital. And this is Miss Forward. And I thought it was very fitting that Amber and I, who I met through the Karen Read movement, joined me. She found me on Facebook, and she lives in Madison. She's originally from Pennsylvania, so she's new to Madison. So her and I went down to the Capitol, and we stood by Miss Forward, and we had so many people approach us. It was really awesome. I didn't expect that the case really hasn't, reached this far to the Midwest as I thought. I really didn't think it had, but I handed out over, I believe it was 25 flyers that we had printed out. And I will share with you guys next week. I want to give a thank you to one of the Free Karen readers on Facebook who shared this flyer with Amber, and I took them to FedEx and we printed them off. And then we also put them on our posters with the QR code, which is such high technology. I love it. And they were able, a couple people came up to my poster and just QR'd it, and they started watching the video right there. And that's what we want. That's how we spread awareness. And I'm hoping that we can do that for Sandra Birchmore, Ellen Greenberg, for Suzanne Morphew. I hope we can do that for them as well. Get some nationwide standouts going, because they deserve justice just as much as Karen Read and John O'Keefe do. And there'll be many more that we'll be talking about that deserve justice too. So this was our standout that Amber and I did, and we were at the Capitol, and then we went down State Street to the UW, University of Wisconsin-Madison campus, and we were out at the Memorial Union on Lake Mendota. And we had more students coming up to us and wanting to meet us and asking about Karen Read. So it was really impactful for Amber and I to get to participate that way. We were really glad that we could do it, and that I happened to be here in town during the standout. So then we had ice cream, because they make homemade ice cream at the Memorial on campus at Bascom Hall. They make homemade ice cream, and we had more people coming up and scanning this QR code that this wonderful person made. And I don't want to get her name wrong, so I will share that with you next week. Maybe we can get her to come on the show and tell us about her standout and what she did for the national standout for the Free Karen Read movement. So that's my city, guys. I'm still here for another week, and then I'll be going back down to Florida for a little bit. But this is Madison, Wisconsin. Come visit sometime. It's a beautiful city. We have a lot of interesting topography here. We have a lot of museums, and the University of Wisconsin, and all the sports. And yeah, that's the capital, and that's Lake Monona. That's the other lake. Madison is an isthmus, so the capital is between two lakes, and it's very picturesque. But it's very cold in the winter. So unless you love snow and skiing, come visit me here when I'm here in the summer, in the fall. Okay. So I will just take a quick look at the chat box, make sure I did not miss something that somebody wanted to ask me. So give me just a second. We don't have a lot. Let's see here, Olive. Oh, yes, I put that up already. And Miss Shorty, I think she believes that, yes, it was the husband. Most of us women are definitely thinking that that's the case. Hi, Amber. Oh, you love the Madison. You love the weather in Madison. Cool. Awesome. Nice for you to make it. Thank you, Amber. I will be chatting with you soon. And hopefully you can watch the beginning on playback when we talked about the crazy cats and how we're going to try to work together as a united front of women and not put up with that ridiculous stereotype that is put on women who own cats and single women who don't have children, not being part of society, not contributing to society. We talked about all that at the beginning. So hopefully those of you that were coming in late will be able to watch it on the replay. And then if you have any questions, we're going to touch on that a little bit next Wednesday and then roll on into how hard it is to date in 2024 if you're single, and again, catch up a little bit on all of our ladies that we're standing for. We'll always end our show with the ladies that we're standing for and any updates that we have on either their cold cases or their current standing of whoever has been arrested or who hasn't been arrested. So we'll end our shows that way. And sometimes in the middle, I would definitely want to call you up to the platform. So I really hope that we can take a little break because it gets heavy and it's sad, and we can share some stories about women that are empowering and that can make us laugh a little bit. And then we can end with representing the women who need us to represent them and get justice for them. Because if you've been murdered by your husband or your boyfriend or your fiance, you didn't deserve that ever. And you deserve to have justice for that as much as we can give it to you. We can't give you your life back. And I really, really wish we could. It just breaks me that these women who deserve to live are not with us because some man can't control himself, because he's never reached out for help, because he's just mean and nasty and evil, like most of these men, right? So I want to keep standing for these ladies, and for any other ladies that we find their cases, we're going to stand for them. And but we will have some Wednesday nights, and if you want to provide me with content that you'd like to talk about, we will talk about lighter content. I'm happy to have a few Wednesdays where we go lighter and not so heavy, but I always want to give an update on the ladies that we're standing for. So I don't have anything else tonight, and I don't see anything else in the chat box right now. So thank you so much to those of you that joined me live. I really, really appreciate it. It's not easy starting out like this at my age. I was doing the pre-recordeds for like 5 years. Those weren't hard. I could talk for hours. I used to do public speaking, but live streams are tough, and especially when you don't get a very big audience and you're trying to get some audience participation by having a chat box and you don't have enough. And it can be a little daunting. I called my friend Kathy tonight when there was like no one in the chat box. And I said, maybe I should reschedule this. I'm not sure I could do this tonight. I don't know if I could talk for a whole entire hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half and not have chat box participation. But with live streams, you just never know what's going to happen. And especially when you're new and you're trying to establish yourself as a voice for the voiceless, it can take time. So she reminded me, as one of my oldest, dearest friends since I was 21, that you have to be patient. You have to see what is going to happen. And, maybe I'll go back to pre-recorded if live stream doesn't work. We'll see. I'll give it a chance. I also want to mention, if any of you have ever done 23andMe, or if you haven't, you should do it, because I recently was able to connect with 2 of my cousins who were adopted by my dad's first cousin. So it's like my mom always says to me when we talk about genealogy, I need a chart. So my dad's cousin from many, many years ago, when my dad was, he was, I believe, 7 or 8 years younger than her. She had 2 children before she married her husband and gave them up for adoption. So they were out there and no one knew about them. And I didn't know about them. My father's no longer living. He didn't know about them. I I found them on 23andMe. I came up as a match that they were my second cousin, that we had the same great grandparents, my grandpa Ole and my grandma Mary Anderson from Norway. They came over separately with their families on that big giant boat. I think we have it written down in our genealogy, Carolyn and Linda. I will share that with you, what the boat's name was. And they were on Ellis Island, and they came across when my grandpa Ole was 6 years old. And my grandpa Ole lived a fascinating life. I could do a whole show on him. He worked with Frank Lloyd Wright before Frank Lloyd Wright became famous. And my grandpa Ole was a cabinet maker in Richland Center and a full-blooded Norwegian. He married Grandma Mary, who was a full-blooded Norwegian, and why I am on my DNA, 23andMe, I think 70% Norwegian. So I found them, and they had both marked that they had been adopted. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom. And I'm telling my mom about this. And of course, my father's passed away. I can't ask him. My dad's parents are passed away. And I was digging into it. And then I figured it, I thought I had it figured out, but then I reached back out to them, and they hadn't been on the site for a long time. So then I didn't go on the site for a long time. And then one thing led to another. I went back on, they contacted me, and I just met my cousin Linda yesterday. It was so amazing and so awesome. And now I'm going to, let's see, I was going to share something that they said, because if this enlightens you to do 23andMe, my cousin Carolyn lives in Houston, so she's flying up here in October when I'm back, and then I'm going to get to meet her. And my sister and I met Linda yesterday, and my mom has yet to meet them, but they have shared with me how accepting they feel, and how for years they were so excited and wanted to know their family, but never thought they would ever have the chance. And so I'm just thrilled that I get to share with them what some of our family members were like, what our great grandparents were like, because I got to meet great grandpa Ole, and I got to meet their grandma, who was my great aunt, and I spent a lot of time with her as a child. So never give up on people. You know, that's kind of my take now for tonight, as we never give up on people. Have people, you know, you just never know when something wonderful will happen to you. And it certainly has happened to me now that I have these two cousins. So thanks so much for joining me tonight, everybody. I really appreciate it. I will come back here on screen to say my farewell and close that off. So like I said, repping the Badgers tonight. Maybe next time I'll have USC, Packers, Badgers, Brewers, all my teams. Feel free to shout out to me or give me some smackdown talk in the chat box about who your team is and who you're rooting for, because I'm a huge sports fan. So there'll always be a little component in my Wednesday and Thursday live streams where I talk about sports. So feel free to, rep your team up there. I really appreciate it. And thanks everybody who was live. Thanks everybody who watches on replay. I really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow night with Calling Out Corruption, and we'll be going over all the cases that we've covered so far, catching you up on anything new that I found out. And then, like I said, we will be having guests coming up down the road as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I hope you all have a great night. Take care. Raise your voice on social media. Hashtag us, raise your voice. Hashtag just us. As my mother always said, sometimes there's no justice, there's just us. Take care, everyone. Good night.